Well, next up, I'm delighted to introduce to you Frank Anderson, psychiatrist and current president of the Foundation for Self-Leadership, as well as a lecturer and supervisor with the Trauma Center at the Justice Resource Institute here in Boston. So if you'd welcome Frank.
Well, I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to be amongst these folks and to learn from everybody. Today I'll be speaking about internal family systems. Just curious, how many people in the room even know what IFS is or internal family systems? Okay, great. Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, that's right. We're in Boston. That's exactly right. Okay, well, hold on one second. Okay, so John this morning was saying he doesn't like to diagnose people, or he's not that into diagnoses. I wasn't quite sure what you're you're saying about that. Not what you're talking about. I'm also agreeing with that, but I'm going to give you all a diagnosis. Okay, we all have multiple personalities. Okay, this is one of the main tenets and beliefs of IFS. Okay, we all have parts. We don't have multiple personality disorders, but we all have multiple personalities. Okay, it's one of the main things that I'll be talking about today is some of the differences. I loved hearing the other talks here because there's so much commonality in EMDR and in sensory motor psychotherapy and in IFS around healing trauma. Okay, these are treatments. These are not spiritual practices. Okay, these are treatments for healing trauma. There is a lot of hope, and there is a lot that can be done to permanently heal trauma. And it's great to have. I mean, in my opinion, you can't be a trauma therapist this day and age if you don't incorporate and do these kinds of treatments. Because this is non-talking therapy. This is emotionally implicit memory-based healing. And that's what's necessary for trauma. Okay? So I'm going to focus on IFS. And as I said, it's a model of psychotherapy. It's not a spiritual practice. However, it does include systems thinking. The goal of trauma treatment from the IFS perspective is systems integration. We're all systems. Okay? As I said before, we all have multiple personalities. And it does include spiritual traditions, okay? Self-energy is a very spiritual experience, which I'll talk a little bit later about. IFS also includes mindfulness and utilizes mindfulness. So it utilizes a lot of these tools in the service of healing. The goals of IFS therapy, pretty basic, but they're basic, but they're important. It is a healing model. And it is to unburden the wounds that we carry, number one. Number two, it's restoring the trust in the self-energy that has been lost as a result of the trauma and as a result of burdens and wounds. And it's the reharmonization of the system. Okay? So this idea of self, and I teach neuroscience also, and there's all this cortical midline structure stuff going on around what is self, where is self, what's self-representation in the brain, okay? This is not what I'm talking about here, and I'm not talking about the unitary self either. It's one of the things that I love about IFS is self is an experiential thing. Okay, I was talking to Jim earlier at lunch today, and what is self? It's certainly not located in anywhere of the brain. In the way that I experience it, I think about it as kind of a maximally integrative experience. It allows us to be interconnected. It allows us to connect with energy amongst ourselves, amongst the universe, the trees, the animals, and within. And it's something, it took me in level 1, level 2, level 3 training, it took me midway through level 2 training to feel what self felt like for the first time. And I actually feel this vibrating energy going through my body, and that's when I know I'm in self. Okay, and it's a place of openness and the place of no judgment to be able to be fully present for who you're with, or what you're with, I should say. Okay? One of the differences in some of the contemplative practices, from the IFS perspective, self does not need to be practiced or cultivated. It is inherently in all of us. We are born with it. It is not destroyed, but trauma blocks access to it. So it's a simple concept to remove the burdens and the blocks to allow self to naturally emerge. I can't tell you how many clients I've worked with who have DID who are convinced there is no self in there. And I just clearly agree to disagree, because I know it is inherently present in all of us, and it doesn't need to be created. Okay? Some people call it the core seat of consciousness. Some people call it spiritual. It's an interconnectedness, in my experience, with all things. And it's a really great place to be. I think John was saying, it's not hard to go to work, okay? Not when you're in that experience, because it's beautiful. Here's some of the words. You know, every model has their jingles. It's calm, curious, compassionate, creative, clarity. Some of the words we talk about to describe self-energy. This is some of where, and this is some of what comes in the chapter in the IFS, in the book that was, that we're celebrating today, actually. It talks about some of this overlap and similarity around Buddha nature. Loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, sympathetic joy, Tibetan Buddhism around everything within enlightenment. So this is a similarity, I think, that we can call the self-energy in IFS to Buddhist practice. So a little bit about the model. We all have parts. We all have multiple personalities. We're born with them too. Okay? We're not just born with self. We believe you're also born with parts. And when, you know, the system's new, it's all working smoothly together. And it's only through our experiences in life that burdens develop. Okay, now, I could take this to the next level. Personally, I believe we can come into this world with burdens that are related to past lives. But we're not going to go there here in this talk, because I have 6 minutes left, whatever it is. So this is for another time, believe me. So for these purposes, we come in, okay, with self and with parts that are fully integrated. IFS believes all parts are welcome. The suicidal parts, the cutting parts, all welcome. Really believe it. IFS does not really believe in the stages of trauma treatment. Okay, I'm writing a chapter right now in a book around the ways IFS is different from stage-oriented treatment. When somebody comes in with a big slash, we say, wow, that's so great that that part showed up. Thank you for being here. I know you're doing something important to this system. I want to learn about it. Thank you for showing up. Okay, and that, in our belief, is the way to get to the underlying wound. Those are protective parts that are protecting in the ways that they know how to protect this system, because they were born at the time of a burden or a trauma. All parts are welcome, and we really believe that. Therapists have them too, by the way. Some people call this countertransference. We call it parts. And our parts, anytime I do a consultation, it's about the parts of the therapist that are getting in the way of the work of the client. Okay? We show all parts compassion, appreciation, and the important role and the function that they do within the system. As I said, there are some parts that have 2 categories of parts. Parts that serve a protective role and parts that carry wounds or burdens. Okay? These parts that carry protective roles can come in 2 forms. An extreme protective. Once a trigger has happened, I will do everything in my power to stop it. Okay, so some parts stop the triggering no matter what. Those are our extreme parts. And we have other really hard-working parts that try to prevent things from happening. If I'm really good, if I'm really smart, if I'm really funny, they're going to like me and I'm not going to get hurt. Hard-working parts to prevent, okay? We also have parts that hold wounds and burdens, okay? Parts are not their burdens. We're not interested in getting rid of them or pushing them away. We want to embrace them, and we want to have self develop a relationship with this part that's serving a really important role. There's steps in the model, just like every other model has their steps, and we utilize meditation here, okay? Mindfulness meditation to start to find the part, go inside, focus your attention on the part, ask how we often ask one of these questions, how do you feel toward the part? Is there any self-energy around? I hate this part. It destroys my life. That's not one of those C words. Okay? I'm curious about it. I want to get to know it. Then we know that self is present in relationship to the part. We want to hear about it. We want to befriend the part. One of the main things of mindfulness that we utilize in IFS around working with parts is creating that separation, or what we call unblending, so that the person is no longer in the part. Somebody earlier said, love when anger shows up. It's scary to be with somebody when they're in anger, unless they're able to be with their anger. A part of me is so mad right now is very different than I want to kill you. Okay, so this idea of separation is enormously important in our capacity for the client to be with these hugely powerful affects and for the therapist to be. So we work on that separation so that people can be with these extreme beliefs and feelings. Okay, one of the other things, it's one of these little tricks. It's going to be a secret, like as if you guys, I'm going to only tell you, but I'll make it that way for dramatic effect. This is a crazy thing if you ask the part to not overwhelm you. They do. This is one of the ways IFS can be with extreme affects, okay, and not get overwhelmed. If you get permission and you get a full agreement that the part is willing to not overwhelm you, it doesn't. It's a crazy thing. This is one of Dick Schwartz's laws of inner physics. Like, how did this happen? I don't know. I just asked and they did it. And that works. So it's one of the ways to be with that, okay? I think, how much time do I have next, Dave?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Perfect. Okay. I love when it works out that way. Okay, so lastly, I want to speak about healing, okay? Because we are talking about permanent healing, okay? This is something that's real. This is something that anybody who's experienced it feels it and knows it, okay? And I believe, and Dick Schwartz is not here right now, okay, that IFS is not the only form of therapy that can do this, okay? This is being videotaped. Oh my God. No, IFS does it well. I think other modalities can do this permanent healing, okay? We call it unburdening, and this is a model of transformation instead of adaptation, okay? We are transforming memory, okay, permanently. The transformation happens, the unburdening process. Are folks familiar with memory reconciliation? Bruce Ecker's work. I really believe that there's a lot of similarity between the unburdening process in IFS and memory reconciliation. There's a witnessing phase, okay? You access the traumatic effects without having it overwhelm you, okay? We witness it. Self is there to witness all the pain. Anything else? Is anything else I need to know? What else do I need to know? When all the witnessing has occurred, with self being present, then we go into the scene. Memory reconsolidation works imaginally as well. We know this has been studied. We go and get the part out of the scene. You no longer have to be there. You never have to go back to that place again. This is a promise. Once the part is out of the scene, once it's shared everything, it's not the only holder of the information. So it can leave that space. We bring it somewhere safe in the present, and then we invite it to unload all the memories, thoughts, and feelings out of its body. Throw it in the river, burn it in a fire, whatever works for the system is fine. But they can unload all those feelings and beliefs, and then we ask it to bring in new qualities that it needs to move forward in life. Last piece in this process is to have any of the parts that have been protecting to come back and take a look and see what's happening in this system now. And most of the time what happens is the part's like, wow, I don't have to do this job anymore. And then the protective parts are also free to do something else. It's a powerful model. It's spreading around the country because it works and people experience it. And again, it's one of the ways to permanently heal trauma. Thank you for listening, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the day.